Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We would be grateful if you take a few moments to listen to the following short safety announcements. On hearing the fire alarm, we would ask everyone to evacuate the building immediately. Please leave in a calm and orderly manner using the exits which are located at the front and the rear of the hall. Then make your way to the assembly point at the front of the physics building located at the car park side of the hall opposite the main building. We would ask you to remain there until instructed otherwise. Please do not attempt to re-enter the building, even if the alarms have been silenced, as this does not always mean the emergency is over. Today, more than ever, thank you for wearing a face mask. It is important to remind everyone that masks should be worn whilst in the hall unless you are crossing the stage. I would also like to take this opportunity to ask you to silence all mobile phones now for the duration of this ceremony. Thank you for your cooperation, and we trust you enjoy your visit to Queen's University. A short university video will now be played.
I've always had an interest in going on to have a career in research, so I knew that when I was picking the university for my postgraduate studies, I needed to pick a university that is known on the international stage.
Skills anywhere I find myself. What matters is to apply the skills to make wherever I find myself a better place.
It seems to be a great way to separate yourself from the rest of the pack. Shows the employer that you're engaged and you're really interested in this area.
Since becoming a postgraduate student and I have access to the graduate school, it's a gorgeous building. It's really easy to work your life around it. Like it doesn't take over your life, it improves it.
Please rise to receive the academic procession.
good afternoon and a warm welcome on this special occasion to graduates, parents, families and friends from the School of Chemistry and Chemical Engineering and the School of Pharmacy. I declare open this congregation for the celebration of degrees, diplomas and certificates, and please be seated. Members of Senate, fellow members of staff, ladies, gentlemen, guests, friends, I'd like to say how delighted I am to have this opportunity of saying a few words this afternoon. And to our graduates, I should say welcome back. Today, you'll be able to mingle with your fellow former students, with your families and friends, and it's an opportunity for us to pass on our congratulations to you. I should say at this point that when I was sitting there, I used to have this nagging fear in the back of my head that suddenly the door would open and somebody would rush in and say, "We checked the spreadsheets and you're not graduating, Chris." But I promise you, well, obviously you've already got your certificates, I hope, at this point, so you can all relax to that extent. When you started at Queen's, I don't think anybody could have imagined what lay ahead. In particular, the experiences that you've had and the things you've had to struggle against with COVID is something that the previous generations at Queen's have not had to face. And in particular, for many of you involved in health and caring professions, you've been part of the community, not just of Queen's, but of the local residents in this part of Northern Ireland. And so I'd like to say thank you personally for what you and your colleagues have done to keep us safe. I think I'd also like to pay tribute to the staff that have helped you throughout this time period as well, and to also at least give a small moment of thought and a round of applause, not just for yourself and for the staff, but also for your friends and family who've supported you in reaching this opportunity. So can we just say thank you to those who've helped? That was way too polite, right? Okay. We're celebrating the achievements of two schools, pharmacy and chemistry and chemical engineering. And there are one or two people that I'd like to pick out, having achieved really special things in their time with Queen's. I'd like to pick out Fionnuala Doran, who's graduated with an M.Pharm degree, first class honours. And her passion for science and medicine has overcome personal illness since being diagnosed as a child. And her experience of care and compassion shown to her by healthcare professionals has inspired her to become a pharmacist. And this is a really significant achievement. She showed tremendous determination, especially under the additional overheads of COVID. And I would also like to pay thanks to Professor Hannah and Dr. Hall. So congratulations, Fionnuala, on your achievements here. Well done. From chemistry and chemical engineering, I'd like to draw attention to those graduates who've also paid a significant contribution in Queen's work in sustainability and in our green economy work. In particular, Emma Rafferty, who's studying CCE, was a climate change ambassador for COP26. So again, just say congratulations to Emma. Okay, so this is my fifth graduation address, right? When I started, I thought I was only going to have to do 4. But one of my colleagues got injured, and so I had to do 2 extra. And I promised myself that I wouldn't give the same address twice. So I've had to do social work, a subject that I don't really know very much about, and management. But luckily, when we come to pharmacy and chemistry and chemical engineering, the intersection of those 2 subjects are like a vast area to talk about. I have to be really careful, though, that I don't end up on the Nolan show or something. Okay. So I want to talk to you about 2 things. But when you give a graduation address, it's really important to have a moral. And so the kind of moral that links these 2 stories is this idea that what you gain in a degree, what I left with my degree, I thought I knew a load of stuff that I'd had to revise for an exam. But actually, I think the thing that I carry with me that I still use today is the ability to ask questions and then identify whether I really trust the answers that I get. And that's a generic skill that 35 years later, I still really, really value. It's the most important thing. So let me begin by telling you a story about what happened to me when I didn't ask a question. Okay, so, and why it's appropriate here is that my father was a biochemist, right? And I didn't really understand what he did. But he worked for one of the UK's biggest pharmacy companies, and I'm not going to name them here because I know this is streamed and I might get into a lot of trouble. But anyway, so he said, yeah, no problem, Chris. I'll get you a summer job, right? And so I worked on a production line, and it was about 20 miles away, and our times, our shifts didn't coincide, so I used to cycle there. And at the start of the week, I felt great, and then as the week went on, I began to feel slightly more tired, but also in some weird way, slightly more relaxed. And this carried on throughout the week. And then at the weekend, I kind of felt a bit stressed. It was like, man, I really want to go back to work. Anyway, at the end of 6 weeks, I asked them what they produced on the production line, and they told me it was, and I'm going to probably say this wrong, but benzodiazepam? Do the pharmacists know what that is? I hope you know what that is, okay? For those of you that don't know what that is, I know it by a much more familiar name, like a generic name, or not, a product name. I'm not going to say it here in case I get into trouble. For those of you that don't know what it is, try and look it up on somebody else's internet-connected device, okay? Because otherwise you might get into trouble. Okay, so that was a quick anecdote of problems in my life when I really should have asked the question. I'm going to tell you now the opposite, all right? And hopefully this is going to really worry you all. This is one of the benefits of giving a graduation address is you can tell stories that mess with your brains, because now you've graduated, I get to do that for free, and there's no exam at the end, right? So this is one of the most worrying things that ever happened to me in my life. I used to work with an anaesthetist, right? And he was a professor of anesthesia. And so he asked me to go, and I was working on error in medicine, in devices and software and stuff. He asked me to go and give a talk. But I didn't really know what he did, so I thought, I'll go and listen to this person's talk. I'm really trying hard not to say his name in case he's listening. Anyway, so what he did, his speciality was, could you get a computer to anesthetize a patient? So many of you are pharmacists, even the chemists should have an opinion on this. Do you think that's a reasonable thing to do? Some people are going, yes. Well, we'll ask you at the end of the story and see what you think, right? So anyway, the problem is this. For anesthesia, there's no objective measure, and pharmacists, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no objective measure for the depth of the anesthetic. So in other words, there's subjective things, so they can like lift a hand and it's loose or whatever, subjective scales. But this guy wanted to have an objective measure of anesthesia. And I was sitting there in the talk thinking, yeah, that sounds plausible. And the problem of trying to gain more information back on the depth of anesthesia is that when a patient is intubated, they're given muscle relaxant, so obviously they can't easily communicate. Everybody with me so far? I'm going to get to the scary bit now, right? So what this professor of anesthesia did was he put a tourniquet onto the patient's arm to restrict the paralysis drug going into that part of the patient's arm. And then he started to try and have conversations to the patient during the surgery under anesthesia. It turns out something like 40% or so of the patients could show a reasonable degree of comprehension during the surgery. One person's just done what I did there. And so his concluding remark was, well, none of us really know how anesthetics work. Now, as a member of the public, I'm like, what? And then the second thing he said, which has stuck with me all these days, is that one effect of anesthesia might be to induce amnesia. Wow, that's scary. So I started off with this sort of moral for the graduation talk, which was never stop asking questions, right? This is one of the situations where I think I wish I'd never asked that question or gone to that lecture. But hopefully what you've learned from your experiences here at Queen's are to keep asking questions and then to measure the reliability of the person telling you the story. So I hope you're doing that right now. Okay, will all graduates please rise? In the name and by the authority of the university, I confer on you and those whose names appear on the graduation list the degrees, diplomas and certificates to which you're entitled and for which you are present will be individually presented by your head of school. Thank you. Please be seated.
Pro Vice-Chancellor, I present to you graduates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the School of Chemistry and Chemical Engineering. Matthew Noel Blair. Con Stephen Boyle. Patrick Finbar Conlon. Marie Finnegan. Washa Prasad Sarvatherman. Matthew Charles West. And for the degree of Master of Science in Pharmaceutical Analysis, Euthymia Vota. Thomas John Dixon. Aidan Duggan. Shui Nan Hu. And in Chemistry with a year in Industry, Aislinn Mary O'Hanlon. And in Chemistry with Professional Studies, Kyle Arnold Hill. And in Chemistry, Connor Arthur Duffy. Therese Lisa Gribben. Aidan Thomas McGuigan. Christina Jean O'Boyle. James Mitchell Ormson. Glenda Doris Ritchie. Samuel Robert Shepherd. Cameron Matthew Campbell. Anya Mary Cooper. Robert Martin Guinea. Ryan Liam Henry. Breeze Emer Kimber Freeman. David James Linton. Sarah Jenny McKenna. Shannon McLaughlin. Daniel Peter Murta. Veronica Slowinska. And in Medicinal Chemistry with a year in Industry, Callum Hagan. Hannah Kathleen Pyle. Christopher Johnston Walker. And in Medicinal Chemistry with Professional Studies, Elizabeth Emily Blackwood. And in Medicinal Chemistry, Hannah Elizabeth Agnew. Emma Elizabeth Crothers. Beth Dawn McCready. Cameron James Ullman. And for the degree of Master of Engineering in Chemical Engineering with a year in Industry, Lauren Nicola Blaine. Niamh Connolly. Ben David Cuthbert. Ellen Claire Denning. Naomi Ferguson. Roisin Ann Gormley. Conor Hugh Gourley. Brona Hackett, Eleanor Jane Haddon, Catherine Holmes, Robin Natasha Irwin, Jamie Richard Johnson, Suresh Kudiat, Jessica Sarah McMaster, Kyle John Williams Minford, Charlotte Elizabeth Sloan, Christopher James Mervyn Stewart, Brody Aces, Raphael Ali, Jonathan Stewart Blair, John Alexander Bruce, Daniel David Cavan, Bernard Joseph Clark, Ewan Corr, Matthew Cummins, Aliana de Luna Dunca, Matthew Irvine, Maeve Anya Finnegan, Dara Gill, Alexander Rees Gillingham, Hannah Charlotte Hopkins, Rachel Ellen Jones, Julianne Lowry, Jane Matthews, Tara Marie McCoy, Mary Dimpna McGill, Esther Sarah McKee, James McKenna, Terence Arthur O'Donnell, Shangumi Pathmakanthan, Nicola Riley, Joshua Russell Sturgeon, Yung Wei Sin, Brent Gary Whiteside, Sam Wilkinson, Adam Woodside, Adedoyan Yeyi, Callum McLennan. And in chemical engineering, Emmett Lawrence Brawley, Stuart George Gilmore, Owen Paul Harrison, Kyle McLean, Avine McEwen, Robin Mitchell, Rebecca Robinson, and for the degree of Bachelor of Engineering in Chemical Engineering with a year in industry, Jack Kyle, Geraldine Elizabeth Mellon, Rachel Ann Polhill Siner, Ian Alexander Black, Emma Sarah Clark, Courtney Melissa Quinn, Cora Bridget Savage, Maria Joan Kamashko, and in Chemical Engineering with International Year 1, Omar Mazin Bitar. And in Chemical Engineering, Cathal Craig, Daniel Jonathan Rice, And for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a year in industry, Gregory Kelly. And in Chemistry, Alex Danielle Maya Deonair. Connor Patrick McGrade. And in Medicinal Chemistry, Sophie Elizabeth Griffith. Zoe Sarah Anderson. Adam Donnelly.
Pro Vice-Chancellor, I present to you graduates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the School of Pharmacy. Sarah Maeve Baxter. Michael Connor Breslin Johnston. Ahmed El Kashif. Christopher Gary Emerson. Yang Yang Jiang. Rachel Ann Mayers. Jessica Victoria Moore. Sarah Ann Stewart. Thomas Philip Thompson. Vicky Lee Young. And for the degree of Master of Philosophy, Xu Yan Gu. And for the degree of Master of Science in Advanced Pharmacy Practice with Independent Prescribing, Catherine Collins. Patricia Sarah Catherine Tennyson. And for the degree of Master of Science in Industrial Pharmaceutics, Edward James O'Connor. And for the degree of Master of Pharmacy, Tara Mary Allen. Carla Barr. Sarah Alice Burke. Aoife Marie Boyle. Ciara Kathleen Boyle. Kate Ann Bradley. Natasha Ruth Brownlee. Fiona Megan Carabine. Aisling Kate Carraher. Emily Elizabeth Carson. Soo Hyun Cho. Carrie Louise Yvonne Gladys Collum. Robin Lewis Cuddy. Lauren Elizabeth Dazell. Liam Doherty. Shannon Margaret Donaghy. Fanula Aisling Doran. Cara Louise Molly Edwards. Rebecca Hannah Getty. Lucy Gilpin. Brina Binago. Catherine Ashley Hannah. Christine Elizabeth Hartman. Ciara Marie Hockey. Lee Eileen Hillen, Sophie Rose Horner, Jane Ruth Johnston, Fiona Maria Kearney, Ruth Elena Kelly, Fergal Paul Kennedy, Anna Therese Kennedy, Aoife Shannon Kernan, Rebecca Loughlin, Caitlin Elizabeth Evelyn Madden, Rona Maria Mallon, Niamh Catherine Martin, Sarah Esther Maxwell, Kiva McAvoy War, Matthew Phelan Macastocker, Matthew Ivor McAteer, Amy McBriar, Niamh McCabe, Nicole McCarran, Anna Teresa McCarthy, Shay Michael Joseph McCaughey, Andrea McLean, Megan Grania McCorriston, Jack Robert McGivern, Ryan Patrick McGovern, Connor Michael McGurn, Rebecca Jane McCaig, Lisa Marie McKenna, Eamon Paul McKeown, Mark James McKinstry, Kate Marie McParland, Danielle Patricia McSorley, Erin Marie Milo, Ben Joshua Meller, Bridgine Ann Mitchell, Emer Catherine Morrison, Aidan James Murphy, Alana Margaret Murphy, Shauna Mary Ann Murray, Matthew Alexander Nethery, Lauren O'Kane, Deborah Caroline Elizabeth Patterson, Elspeth Mary Purdy, Clodagh Rafferty, Sarah Redden, Shan Catherine Ritchie, Margaret Robinson, Mariam Salmoud Abdel Fattah Saleh, Matthew David Spence, Catherine Ann Spears, Kerry Alice Stinson, Rebecca Margaret Thompson, Catherine Grace Todd, Nicola Ann Ward, Edward Alec Wilson, George Thomas Wright, Jia Ying Yu, Gemma Anderson, Ryan Andrew John Armstrong, Claire Aileen Conway, Adam Stephen Coyle, Mark Alexander Crawford, Siobhan Sarah Green, Noel Martin Grew, Claire Molly Guns, Thomas Colin Francis Hutton, Kirsty Ann Laverty, Wang Chung Lui, Dara John McFarland, Ronan McDade, Jason Anthony McGlone, Andrew McKnight, Orla Marie McNeil, Sheena McParland, Connor Joseph McQuaid, Rachel Pang Jai Min, Mai Mohammed, Sean McEldowney, Connor Nugent, Ciara Marie O'Neill, Jamie Aloysius Owens, Hannah Martha Rafferty, Kang Yu Wang, Tin Long Timothy Lam, Arinza Chukwu Joel Okafor, Sarah Louise Farmer, Mary Agnes Brown, Lisa Suzanne Donaldson, Sophie Rebecca Irvine, Jenny Olive Galanders, Brooke Jessica McComb, Chloe Sarah McLaughlin, Dara James McQuaid,
So I've got two small things to finish by saying. The first is to apologise to you that people up here are wearing masks and we can't shake your hands. And the honest reason for that is that we have another 10 graduations to do this week, and we're trying to stick by a set of rules that will enable the families and friends of all of those people to enjoy the same experience that you've had today. So I hope you forgive us. It's not that we're being overly strict in the sense of the rules. but we need to do our very best to make sure that we're able to celebrate the graduation of the other people. When we've got 200 graduands per session, you can do the maths. That's an awful lot of family and friends that we're desperate to give this opportunity to. So the other thing I usually say at this point is if you're ever on campus, I will shake your hand after this is over, okay? So thank you. The second thing I want to say is I'm going to put together two different forms of thanks. The first one is something that hasn't been done enough, I think, at graduation. Somebody reminded me about that earlier. And I'd like to give one collective round of applause to two groups of people. So the first group of people are the student reps and the people that serve time on the student union. That sounds like a criminal sentence, but I don't mean it that way, because they contribute so much and give people like me the feedback that we need when things go wrong. So I'd like to say thank you to them. And then I'd also like you to join with me in saying thank you to all the people that have worked really hard to organise today. Given all the COVID rules and regulations, that's put a new level of responsibility on us to keep you safe and to keep the other graduates safe for the rest of the week and all the ceremonies that we've had before this. We've never had so many of these ceremonies in such a short period of time and faced with such uncertainty. So please, can we just say thank you to those two groups of people? So the time is getting on, and the last thing I'm sure you want to do is be sitting here listening to me, okay? So I'll say two more things, very short. First is, again, to repeat my congratulations to all of you. The achievement is immense, and you are the next generation of scientists and engineers that we will rely on in Northern Ireland and all around the world. Second thing is that the relationship that you have with Queen's doesn't go away, and that you will all be part of a community and a family going forward. Being part of any family, that carries responsibility. And just like to finish with those words. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Queen's Alumni Office was established to ensure that the relationship between graduates and alma mater becomes lifelong. Many people will have forged lasting personal and professional friendships while at Queen's, and the ongoing Alumni Outreach Programme aims to keep Queen's men and Queen's women in touch with the university and, of course, with each other. In time, alumni will make return visits to Queen's for reunions, public lectures, social and academic events, and perhaps further study. It's particularly important to stay in contact if careers are pursued overseas, and for this reason Queen's now has a number of graduate organisations based both here in Northern Ireland and throughout the world in Canada, America, the Far East, Africa and Northern Europe. So, graduation should not mark the end of your association with Queen's. Through the Alumni Office, those friends, contacts and memories can last a lifetime.